Racism is when we step beyond these definitions.
Who is racist?
If we are stuck in black and white, we are polarized.
There we have one. There we have one. Oh, there we have two. There we have three. So we have three people in the audience who confess to being racist. Let's understand that point. And I thank you for your honesty in expressing this. You, sir, first of all, you say you're racist. What are you racist? Who are you racist against? You don't know, but you believe you're racist. Would you say you have prejudices against others? Why do you have? Who are you prejudiced against?
Everyone. Everyone is prejudiced.
Sorry?
Everyone likes their own kind.
You're prejudiced.
It's a natural thing. You love your mother because she's familiar.
Who do you prejudge? People I don't understand. People you don't know and people you don't understand, you prejudge. I thank you for that honest observation for yourself. Now we said we have another racist over there. Or were you joking? No, you're really racist. He's racist, he doesn't like that. Yes. Sir, but sir, you said you're racist. Who are you racist against? Anyone who's not at your level. Do you really understand what we're talking about when we talk about racism? Someone who's not at your level. What do you mean your level? What is your level? You're quite a short man. It's hard to me. What are you referring to? You're educated, so you are prejudiced against uneducated people. Great point, but that's not racist, because I believe we very rarely, most societies are terrified to have the debate about racism. In all societies, even the most moderate societies, they refuse to have that debate, refuse to engage in it. And so the prejudice continues. We never discuss and debate what it is. And so prejudice is based upon a series of stereotypes. Stereotypes that we put in place to judge another people. For example, we see black people, and because of the mass mainstream media, we assume by the representation and the image that is projected by the media that black people, and I'm generalizing, blacks are criminal, blacks are drug dealers. When we look at Muslims now, or Asians, hands up you Muslims. What's your name?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Omar.
Omar. What's your name, sir? Fahad. Terrorist. What's your name, sir? Malak. Terrorist. Any other Muslims? Abdul Khalid. Oh my gosh. Osama bin Laden's right-hand man with that title. And you, sir? Muhammad, because the prejudice and stereotypes that we've developed now, when we see Muslims, we assume that Muslims are terrorists, or if not, they associate or they're extremists, or they hate the West. But we never understand why these series of prejudices are put in place. In Europe, in England, when we see Eastern Europeans, they say Eastern Europeans are responsible for prostitution. They always blame others, and so we come up through these bases of stereotypes and prejudice, forming opinions about others. Why are these? When you look at Muslims, Muslims have been in Western society for hundreds of years. In England, there was a large Muslim presence since at least the early 1960s. A large Muslim presence. In America, there's been a large Muslim presence. In California, look how many Iranians live in California. There are Muslims around the world, in Australia. But the real prejudice against Muslims began in 2001, after September the 11th. After September the 11th, the United States government proceeded
It should have been the House of Commons. They got the wrong target, the evil bastards.
Thank you for the advertisement. You see what So what we have was a campaign, a media campaign, orchestrated by the states and by their governments to marginalize, criminalize, and outlaw Muslims. They said Osama bin Laden, they claim Osama bin Laden plotted a terrorist attack against the World Trade Center, against the Twin Towers, against America. use that as a basis to judge all Muslims. But we do. Then we said Saddam Hussein was developing weapons of mass destruction. Then we said that these Muslims are extremists. They're planning attacks in our countries. Hands up, you Americans. Are there any Americans here? You're an American. Sir, tell me how many terrorist attacks that can be proven have taken place at the hands of Muslims? How many? Zero. Zero. Bush. Well, there have been others. We look at Boston recently. We see two individuals. I don't know their guilt. I don't know their guilt. There have been other attempts. But when we look at it, when we talk about September 11th, really the jury's still out. We really don't know anything about September 11th, but we make the connection. Let's just go into a little conspiracy for a little while before we get back to this debate. When we talk about September 11th, why is the jury still out? In fact, let me ask the question, and be honest with yourselves. Hands up, those of you who believe Muslims carried out the attack on September 11th. Hands up. You see, in fact, look at the question. The question was, hands up, those of you who believe Muslims carried out the attack on September 11th. One individual put his hand up. Yet, is that the opinion that we hear in the media? Is that the point of view reflected that the majority of people are in doubt? No, because we have a mass media, which is a corporate media, which sells war propaganda and government propaganda for whichever state it occupies. You, sir, you say you believe Muslims committed September 11th. So I ask you, what evidence do you have?
I know that Muslim extremists made the attack.
You said, sir, that's what you said. All I've asked you is, what evidence do you have?
I do not have any personal evidence.
Oh, so you have no evidence? None. Because that's the reality. We have no evidence. Now, sir, I have no evidence as to who committed that attack. But let's look at some of the evidence without drifting into the realm of being called a conspiracist. Do you agree that there was a terrorist attack that took place in the United States on September 11, 2001?
Yes.
Yes, we do. An act of terrorism. In fact, do you agree that to plan such an attack would have taken a very, very long time and it was very sophisticated?
Oh yes.
Oh yes. Someone would have had to learn to fly a plane.
Oh yes.
Very sophisticated. Would you agree? Would you agree? Would you agree that that is the worst act of terrorism ever carried out in the US? By alleged foreigners?
I can't say.
You can't say. Well, let me connect some dots for you, sir. Do you remember that days after September 11th, we had the anthrax scares? Do you remember that? Whereby anthrax was distributed around America. Now you agree, you say that Muslims committed the act of September 11th. You are sure about that? You know that. Let me ask you this question. Who was responsible for distributing military-grade anthrax across America? And let me tell you before you answer, I know because I'm so great as a black man and read you white people's minds all the time. Right. You are gonna say, I don't know.
Right.
Right! Aren't I a genius?
You are.
Because you don't know. Why don't you know? Because you're not supposed to know. Because if you were supposed to have an opinion about that, the media would have already created that in your mind. So we ask the question, why hasn't the media created in your mind who was responsible for the anthrax? They tried to because they initially claimed that Saddam Hussein was responsible for it. Now when we go back to September 11th, what you claim was one of the greatest terrorist attacks in American history. Are you aware that the letter dated on the anthrax on the anthrax that was sent to the post, the date on the letter was what?
I don't know.
You don't know,
No.
But you know who did it. You're a great geezer. The date on the letter was September the 11th. So we are led to believe that two sophisticated terrorist attacks of the grandest scale were planned independent of each other, simultaneously, to coordinate on those days. Now, what kind of stretch of imagination do you need to connect those dots? So initially they claimed that Osama bin Laden, within 1 hour of the attacks, they'd already announced who they claimed was responsible. They said Osama bin Laden. When the anthrax letters came out, they said Saddam Hussein. Why? Because the Western government had already the intentions to invade these parts of the world. Now, sir, in England we have adverts every 15 minutes. American every 4 minutes. Please, we have another advert coming up in 6 minutes. Sir, the anthrax was military grade. And imagine, when the anthrax first came out, every day in the media, I'd never heard of anthrax. Had you heard of anthrax before September 11th?
No, I didn't.
No! Hands up who had ever heard of anthrax pre-2001? You, sir. 1, 2 people. So 2 people had heard of anthrax prior to September 11th. No one had heard of anthrax. But the media, every day, Sky News, CNN, BBC, Reuters, World Service, Times, Independent, the New York Times, Washington Post, all the Western media, El Pais, all the world's media was saying anthrax, 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 anthrax. For 3 or 4 months, it was the main headline. Every day, anthrax, September 11th, anthrax, September 11th. And then they discovered that the anthrax came from an American military laboratory, Fort Detrick in Maryland. And in fact, the investigations of which the media never covers to you, the investigations uncovered and exposed that the CIA had applied for access to anthrax spores in May of 2001. This is public information. Barbara Rosenberg, in fact, Dr. Barbara Rosenberg, from the Federation of American Scientists, she wrote a scientific paper, in a scientific journal, claiming beforehand that the attacks were homegrown. This is not some Muslim. This is not some wild conspiracist. This is Dr. Barbara Rosenberg from the Federation of American Scientists, which looks into America's use of chemical defense weapons. Barbara Rosenberg said that the attacks were homegrown. As soon as it became public and exposed that the anthrax military-grade spores came from America, the media blacked out. There was no more talk of anthrax. Anthrax dropped from the radar. You can't remember any more headlines about anthrax. It vanished. I ask you this, who has the power to silence the media? Who has the power to stop the debate? Where are the panoramas? Where are the dispatches? Where are the investigative journalist pieces? Nothing. Silence. Who has that power? Oprah. It vanished. No news. Oh, you're off, are you, sir? Are you off? Hello. Are you going? I hope you'll take on board what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything beyond we have to look and investigate the evidence for ourselves. Because what the mainstream media tells you never always are the facts. We had a war in Iraq where they told us after the anthrax ruse failed that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Are you aware that in the month of April, because now that the Americans have conquered Iraq, there is no more discussion of Iraq. Are you aware that last month, in the month of April alone, 700 people died in Iraq as a result of violence? 700 died in Iraq. The conflict is still ongoing. People are still dying in Iraq. Yet, because the Western media don't report it, Because John Simpson, that media prostitute, is not there on the scene saying, "Hi, this is John Simpson from BBC reporting on the terror that still exists in Iraq." Because these motherfuckers are not there reporting the news to you, you believe everything is all right. Everything is not all right. The war or conflict is still going on in Iraq as a result of the actions of America, as a result of the actions of this coalition. Let me deviate on a dirt track, because some of you might think, wow, what's he talking about? And I've worked in the media. I've worked for the BBC in current affairs. I've worked for Channel 4. I know those at Al Jazeera in the UK when they opened up. I'm a documentary maker. For some of you who know the film Blood Diamonds, I made the original documentary, Blood Diamonds. The first person to travel with the rebels in Sierra Leone. Never liked my problem. Let me just enlighten you as to propaganda and the way the media lie to you. The way the media can subtly take you on a dirt track whenever they want to. Because you, the stupid public, are so fucking busy.
Wanker's worse than Hitler.
That's right, wanker's worse than fucking Hitler. Because you motherfuckers are too busy on fucking Facebook and MySpace.
Football, poison. Americans love money.
Like that. Do you remember a couple of years ago there was an MI6 agent, a white man by the name of Gareth Williams? Who remembers him? None of you remember Gareth Williams? Gareth Williams was an MI6 agent. What happened with Gareth Williams was they found his body around Pimlico. He was found dead in a bag, zipped up in a hold-all bag, and they found him in the bath. Zipped up in a bath. This is an MI6 agent. You think, wow, fucking hell, MI6. You'd have thought that someone would be interested. MI6 didn't even notify the state that he was missing for a week. We think, what the fuck? This must be a big story. Who remembers when the Russian spy, Litvinenko, was murdered in England? When Litvinenko, the Russian spy, was murdered in England, we had a panorama program, we had a dispatches, it was on the front page of all the newspapers, they debated it on the Sunday news programs. The Prime Minister spoke about it in Parliament, accusing the Russians. It was a big story. A Russian died. Big story.
They don't like it.
The British government demands that Putin takes responsibility.